So, Julian Nagelsmann has been sacked as head coach of Bayern Munich and will be replaced with immediate effect by Thomas Tuchel. A story which shocked the footballing world, particularly when you consider that Bayern Munich are only 1 point behind Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga. They're in the quarterfinals of the German Cup, and they have a mouth-watering tie against Manchester City in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, having only conceded 2 goals in that tournament so far. Certainly, it shocked Julian Nagelsmann, who was on a skiing holiday in Austria. It's something that may have contributed to the problem. But to think of this as a knee-jerk decision is to misunderstand fundamentally how Bayern Munich are run. They are run by an executive board who has Oliver Kahn as its chairman, Jan-Christian Driesen as its deputy chairman. He basically looks after the finances. Hasan Salihamidzic is the sporting director, and Andreas Jung, who kind of takes care of the marketing. These 4 people have to agree on decisions. And so the fact that all 4 of them have agreed at the same time that it is time to call time on the Nagelsmann project at Bayern Munich means that this is probably not something they just woke up and decided on a Thursday. Now, the timing of the sacking, because of where they are, look, they're 1 point behind Borussia Dortmund, but the next match they play is what's known in Germany as der Klassiker, which is the home game against Borussia Dortmund. If they win that, they're then 2 points clear. But that's not the whole story. Nagelsmann, who grew up just 40 miles from Bayern, was a fan since he was a child. And when he had to retire from football at the age of just 20 because of injury and became a coach, probably could never in his wildest dreams have thought that he would really get the opportunity that he would have dreamed of as a little boy to be part of the Bayern setup. But when he took over at Hoffenheim, they were 17th in the Bundesliga and really expected by everyone to be relegated. There are only 18 teams in that division. He managed to take them not only out of the relegation zone, but into Champions League qualification. A feat that was so spectacular that RB Leipzig, with their funding, knocked on his door. And the job he did in almost winning the Bundesliga with RB Leipzig, as well as getting RB Leipzig to their first ever Champions League semi-final, a semi-final he actually lost to Paris Saint-Germain, managed by his former boss, Thomas Tuchel. Football's a small world, isn't it? But this gave everybody the optimism when hiring him for the Bayern Munich job that he was the right man to lead Bayern into the future. Now, it was always going to be a really difficult job because Hansi Flick, who was a departing manager, had left Bayern to take over the German national team, but really had achieved the holy grail at Bayern, which is winning 6 trophies. He won 6 trophies in 8 months, actually more trophies in that period than defeats. He had done that by putting together a team that actually played together and had a spirit which made them seem almost indomitable. And that was what was hoped that Nagelsmann could bring. He'd done a similar thing at Hoffenheim and he'd done a similar thing at RB Leipzig. And he was very much seen as a man to step into that role. But what a difficult challenge. Now, in his first season, he did win the Bundesliga, but that's kind of the least you expect from a Bayern manager. He was knocked out of the German Cup and he was knocked out of the Champions League. All that could have been forgivable and Bayern didn't react necessarily to that. However, in the summer, during the transfer period, Nagelsmann was critical of the Bayern board in saying that they really were stuck in the mud and needed to change. That's not something that would have gone down particularly well. And as September, by the time they get to September, the Bayern team have not started the Bundesliga in the kind of way that was expected. And Hasan Salihamidzic actually came out and gave this comment. Above all, Julian knows he has the full backing of the board, and that's not something that should need to be emphasised over and over again. Now, look, we're football fans. We know exactly what it means when you have the full backing of a board. But the last little comment there, which is that it shouldn't have to be emphasised, gives you an idea of just how often this question was coming up. Everything kind of turned itself around a little bit to the start of the new year after the winter break in Germany. But this year, this calendar year, things have not gone Bayern's way. They've dropped 10 points, which is a lot for them. And they've gone from first and slipped into second place. And albeit all, as I said, by 1 point. The feeling in that board is that you may have started to lose the players and they needed to act quickly to salvage this season. As I said before, they are facing a quarter-final matchup against the Manchester City side that are determined to do it and are managed by the only other person other than Hansi Flick who has ever managed to win the sextuple, doing it at Barcelona in 2009. Now, the final nail in the coffin, apart from possibly the skiing trip, which didn't go down well at all at Bayern, was the 2-1 away defeat to Bayer Leverkusen on Sunday. Now, why this is particularly bad is it's the third time they've lost this season. It's not the end of the world. However, Nagelsmann, immediately after the game, came out and gave a press conference in which he put the manner of the defeat down to the players being lazy, not playing together as a team. Sound familiar? Saturday, Conte is giving his... Now, the way Nagelsmann did it wasn't quite as shrill, high-pitched, emotional and unsettling to watch, although hugely entertaining as it was to any Arsenal fan. But Nagelsmann's comments were not the only comments made that night. If far more interesting, Hasan Salihamidzic, who is steeped in Bayern tradition, came out and his comments were, "I've rarely experienced so little drive, so little mentality, so little duel, and so little assertiveness from a Bayern team. This is not good enough. They didn't play hard enough." Now, Bayern are a team that doesn't just pride itself on winning. It prides itself on giving everything for the badge, for really working hard. And so those comments, given that it seems that Salihamidzic has been at odds with Nagelsmann for a little while, would have been the catalyst. But the final straw, and this is where it becomes really interesting, was that with Antonio Conte's outburst and Tottenham dithering over sacking him, and I really don't understand why they are, because, and I've had, thanks for the comments, I've had a lot of people pointing this out to me, that Daniel Levy is just so parsimonious with money that he doesn't want to pay Antonio Conte off. Now, I get that, but there's only 10 weeks left of Conte's contract. How much is it really going to cost? It's definitely a foregone conclusion. And one of the things that has caused Bayern Munich to act quickly was that Thomas Tuchel was being talked about as a potential successor to Antonio Conte. He's also apparently on top of Real Madrid's list, should the rumours be true concerning Carlo Ancelotti taking over the Brazilian team this summer. So with Real Madrid and Tottenham both after, and look, I can't believe I've just mentioned those two teams in the same breath as well, but with Antonio Conte leaving Tottenham, with Carlo Ancelotti potentially leaving Real Madrid, Thomas Tuchel is the top of a lot of people's wish list, and Bayern felt that if they didn't act now, they may miss out on a man they think is going to be able to salvage not only their season, but look, he's a serial winner. He won 3 trophies in a single season at Chelsea. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me, because people are now saying, obviously, well, Julian Nagelsmann is free. Why don't Daniel Levy go and get him? Now, having tried Antonio Conte, who's a serial winner, having tried Jose Mourinho, who's a serial winner, it is important to point out that Nagelsmann has only ever won 1 title, but he is a young 35-year-old manager with lots of ideas and has shown himself prone to a bit of an outburst. So he might be flavour of the month for someone like Daniel Levy. But I think if you're watching this, Julian, please consider carefully. It is a poison chalice. It is a cursed club. You should really tear that stadium down and salt the earth that nothing else may further grow there. However, there is an opportunity coming up. And why I think this is particularly interesting is that when, again, involving Tuchel, when Todd Boehly takes over at Chelsea, he surprises everybody by dismissing Tuchel. The timing of that and the decision that he made was baffling. This is a man who couldn't have really done more as taking over from Frank Lampard in delivering silverware. However, when Todd Boehly was asked about this, he spoke at length on it, and he said his first meetings with Tuchel really showed him that he was asking about the youth team. Tuchel didn't know anything about it. He was asking about the reserve team. Tuchel really only cared about the first team and delivering silverware. That's what he sees his job as, which explains why Bayern, I think, have made the right decision in bringing him in now. But Todd Boehly wanted somebody more in the kind of mould of a Pep Guardiola who can really build an empire of a team. In the same way that Newcastle have opted for Eddie Howe to do the same. And, the Cronkies picked Arteta to do a similar thing, a process, something that a fundamental root to tip transformation of a club so that the foundations are strong for years to come. Now, Oliver Kahn is somebody that really understands the difficulty, the tension between the history of Bayern Munich and the future of them as a global entity with a global fan base. And increasingly intelligent owners understand that. So maybe not Daniel Levy. But Todd Boehly thought that Graham Potter was the man to do that. Now, that project is not working, and it seems like only the most stubborn person would fail to admit that. And I don't know Todd Boehly, maybe he is that stubborn. The things going against Graham Potter. I was a fan of his whilst he was at Brighton. I was really impressed with the team that he put together and the attractive football they played. They lacked a little goal scoring. What's going against him is De Serbi has come into Brighton and taken all of that foundational work and added to it a goal scoring, which has seen them qualify for the first time, for only the second time in 40 years, for the FA Cup semi-final. And they have a chance in that tournament, and they also have a chance of qualifying for Europe, a better chance than Chelsea. Since Potter's taken over at Chelsea, it's gone very much the other way. After a bright first 10 games, he just does not seem to be able to get Chelsea scoring, which is a criticism that has been levelled at him over and over again. They are still in the Champions League. They do face Real Madrid. Real Madrid could easily lose to Chelsea. Chelsea could beat Man City in a semi-final, and then Potter's star could be in the ascendant again, and who knows. However, I think if you're watching this, Todd Bowley, and I'm sure you are, but if you're watching this, here's something that I think you should consider. If you want a person who can really come in and build a team for the future, bring in fresh ideas and has something about them, then certainly Graham Potter doesn't look like your guy. And whilst Julian Nagelsmann, there are counts against him, and you could say that his time at Bayern shows that he's not necessarily the sort of person. Moulding a team of Galacticos into a winning team is something that takes a certain type of charisma. Well, it didn't go for Nagelsmann at Bayern Munich. He certainly did it at Hoffenheim, and he certainly did it at RB Leipzig. And he's going to be itching to put the record straight. And give him an opportunity to come in at Chelsea with a little bit of rebuilding, and possibly give him a chance to manage Chelsea side against Real Madrid. Who knows what could happen? So, whilst nobody's talking about it, I actually think that rather than going to Tottenham, Nagelsmann could be a shout for the Chelsea position. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think I'm right? Do you think that Nagelsmann was wrong to sack him? Do you think that Tuchel's going to be a flop at Bayern Munich? Do you think that Bayern Munich are now going to do worse against Man City? I, for one, am hoping, and I love Bayern deeply. It's a team that I've loved for a very long time. Obviously, they're not an Arsenal, and that goes without saying. But do you think that Thomas Tuchel is the right man to take over at Bayern? Should they have kept Julian Nagelsmann? Should you really sack a manager just weeks before a quarter-final in the Champions League? Should you sack a manager who's in a chance of winning the treble? All of these questions, I'm really interested to hear what you think. And if you haven't yet, why not click subscribe? I post every single day. If you like the video, click like. It's the least you could do. Anyway, that's enough from me. Julian Nagelsmann sacked as Bayern manager. Tuchel in. Football. Gotta love it.